What is good with the YouTube? It is your boy, Sean Rock to the aka Little Nicky V6. Represent Mandatory Thrive, HGBM, because every day it is mandatory for us to thrive. And I'm back again with another video. And in this video, matter of fact, before I start this video, when I ask y'all to head over to Amazon.com and blurb.com and purchase my first two published books. The first one is called Give Nothing Less Than 300 From the Basement, Mind, Body, and Soul. Great book. It'll make you laugh, make you cry, and teach you a lesson. As well as purchase my second published book, which is a poem diary book, where I have a lot of different poems that reflect on culture, faith, relationships, masculinity, and various other topics that we're dealing with as men and women and just people. Great books. Check them out. But this video is called it's not an option. It's an obligation. And it's really like me reflecting on so many different lies that I believed growing up, and how now, as a much more mature man who, been diligent in redefining, rediscovering myself, rebuilding myself, and becoming the man that I would love to be, just kind of debunking and tearing down a lot of the lies that I believed. One of the lies that I believed growing up was that swag, charm, and the use of struggles would get me through. And let me just kind of break that down a little bit, bust that down. As long as I knew what to say, right, how to charm, I would get my way. And I would use the fact that, I grew up in an impoverished environment, single parent home. I would use these things as an scapegoat whenever things got hard. And I thought women in society owed me something, essentially because of my upbringing. And this was a philosophy and ideology that I didn't, just sit down and study and say, this is what I'm going to use as a way to get me through things. But I did. I used it in so many ways. Well, I wasn't taught this. I wasn't taught that. I wasn't given this. And now that I'm a lot more older and mature, I realize that playing on the emotions of people, though that's very wrong, I was hindering my own growth by playing a game instead of taking initiative and action and figuring out the solutions for the challenges that I faced. That's the first truth that I've began to discover, along with the fact that just because you as a man may come from poverty, you may lack male guidance, right? You may have not a strong support system. None of this alleviates the responsibility of masculinity. None of it. Absolutely none of it. In fact, the opposite is true, right? This essentially means that you need to be more diligent. You need to be more proactive in figuring out, how to overcome your spiritual, emotional, physical, emotional, mental obstacles, and essentially finding a way to excel in life, which points to the point that I'm making in this video, that it's not an option, it's an obligation. Another lie that I believe was that everyone would like me if I was nice, right? If I would, dim my light or downplay myself in order to fit in. And the reality was that, number one, I realized that a lot of people still don't like you, along with a lot of people still don't respect you. And as a man, respect is paramount. Respect is vital, right? So essentially playing by these artificial limiting rules in order to be liked was once again trapping me, and it traps men and it negates our responsibility, but it eliminates a level of respect, right? It takes your integrity and honor, because you are essentially wasting energy on being upset that certain people don't like you, all right? And which is making you not be who you really truly are, along with you are doing a lot of extra work to be liked by people with no guarantee that these people are going to like you. But respect is earned through action, right? So a firm no, action, discipline, putting yourself first is ideal. So that was the second lie that I believe, and that's the second truth that I believe. And now I understand that it's not an option, it's an obligation. A third lie that I believe is that female nature, right? So female survival instinct was not stronger than love or my love. And over the years, I've learned that the female nature objective is to survive. The woman is the weaker vessel in terms of physical strength, right? So they test you, right? And they do certain things in order to protect their survival, right? And to piggyback off that, I also thought women were just angels and they could just do no wrong. They were just sweet, innocent little angels, and they did no wrong. And this is far from the truth. Now I've graduated from the state of anger, right? You have rage because you discover that this is not true. And then this grows into anger. Now, as I do reflection, I understand that this software, this wiring was put into women for survival. And this isn't something that you should be upset about. This is something that you should be aware of, right? This is something that you should understand. And as a man, as a leader, right, in engagements now, I now lead with women, right, versus follow. Because without understanding this philosophy, you're going to be led by a woman, right? This understanding, once again, goes back to, it's not an obligation. I mean, it's not a option, it's an obligation. And I remember, like, growing up, I did everything primarily to please women. So if bald fades were in, I had a bald fade. If braids were in, I had braids. If dreads were in, I had dreads. And I did this to appeal to women, right? Not understanding female nature, not understanding that the hairstyle that I rock should be the hairstyle that I want to rock, right? And by me appealing to the masses of women's idea of what attractiveness is, I automatically assume a weaker position, and I'm not fit for the survival of a woman, right? She automatically perceives me as weak because I'm indoctrinating myself with whatever she wants, I will do, right? Whatever she desires, I will do. And that's going about it backwards. Now, I don't try to act like a street guy, right, to appeal to women. I'm not a punk, but that's not me. I don't need to yell and be super aggressive or overly assertive. That's not me, right? I be who I am, and the nature of the women who respond to that will respond to that. But the bigger thing is, I would use women's love as an scapegoat for my responsibilities. So when something got hard, a job got hard, I tucked under a woman, right? I had conflict with men, I would tuck under a woman. And not in the way that you may think I'm speaking on it, but in a way, in a weak way, right? Like I was looking to be saved by women. And when you realize that female nature is about survival, it's not about love, you realize that you have a responsibility to create an environment of protection, an environment of provision, right? An environment of passion, right? An environment of prayer, an environment of, safeness, endurance. You have to be strong and diligent. And though, today I may just want to chill out with Shorty, right? And she's saying, yo, I want you to chill out with me, blase, blase, splee. But I know I have X, Y, and Z that I need to be accomplishing. I have to go do X, Y, and Z. And then if I have time after that, after the task is done, then I can chill out. So that's the third thing. I'm going to stop at 3. Masculinity is an obligation. It's not an option. You know, exercise, it's not an option, it's an obligation. You know, getting financially secure, it's not an option, it's an obligation, right? Learning, reading, growing, it's not an option, it's an obligation. Um, Becoming more enlightened, more in tune spiritually, it's not an option, it's an obligation. And most importantly, the most important one, being who you are, authentically 100% yourself, is not an option, it's an obligation. Masculinity is about action, focus, assertiveness, direction, right? Taking step after step after step after step after step after step to conquer things. Now, I am a man with a variety of, you know, different energies within myself. I have a lot of feminine vibes about me that I take total ownership. You know, I honor this about myself. I'm not ashamed of this. So, a lot of what I do is more in a flow state, in a creative state, right? Because I have, you know, a lot of more feminine energy than the typical man. But it's still action based, it's still focused. So essentially what I'm saying is, let's say you work out, right? You have a 5x5 that you do, right? And each week you want to do that 5x5 straight by the board, right? And you're at this weight, and by the end of the 8-week set, you want to be able to have improved by a certain amount of increments, maybe 2.5 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, whatever your goal. By the end of this 8-week thing or program, you want to be able to lift 20 more pounds, 30 more pounds. That's a typical formula for a very naturally more aggressive masculine man. Now, for me, that's not how I structure my routines. My routines is in the flow, right? So I have principles that I follow, right? I have tangible goals that I follow, but I do it in the flow, right? Freely, in a creative way, expressive in movement. Why? Because that's what aligns with my form of masculinity, right? It's still structured, it's still detailed, it's still focused, it's still assertive, but it's assertive in a different way. See, learning what type of man that you are essentially will help you. See, when I was shifting from my beta perspective, I automatically shifted or tried to become an alpha male. But I couldn't, something seemed off, right? I couldn't resonate with the philosophy completely of an alpha male. It just didn't sit right. It was conflicting. I was conflicted about how I was trying to project myself to the world in that context. So I said, no, this is quite not me, right? And then that's when, someone near dear to my heart broke it down to me. Actually, a woman said, nah, I think you're a Sigma male. And I never knew nothing about what a Sigma male was. But because of that connection, I went and started researching. And I was like, wow, this aligns perfectly. It aligns perfectly with how I was, but then it opened up the floodgates for me to tap more into that, even on a higher level. So the last point that I want to make is that discover your version of masculinity, right? Titles, I like titles because it gives me a framework um, for what direction I want to go and to understand things. You know, you could just figure this out just by living life. But for me, I like the titles because the titles help me to have the proper framework to do the proper work to align more closely with who I am and what I want to be. It is not an option, it's an obligation. Salute to everybody out there gaining. Lil Nikki.